Bucks have been listening and engaged with interested teams. Look at teams like Miami, Golden State, New York, and Minnesota as the most serious suitors.
Breaking news from the NBA, Giannis Antetokounmpo is headed to South Beach.
It is Giannis and Bobby Portis to the Heat.
It is official, man. Giannis, South Beach Greek free.
13 months. That's how long the rest of the league waited on this one trade. 13 months of rumors, denials, and reports that went nowhere. And then in a single night, it was real. Giannis Antetokounmpo was headed to Miami. And the second it hit, the basketball world split down the middle. Half of it said Miami just jumped back into title contention. The other half said Pat Riley just handed away the next decade for a player who could walk in a year. So which side is right? How much did one offseason actually change the future of the Miami Heat? Because this is the biggest swing in franchise history. The last two times Miami made a bet this big, it landed Shaq in 2004 and LeBron and Bosh in 2010. Both ended up in championships. That's the company this trade is keeping.
Pat Riley has landed his white whale. We know his history. Shaquille O'Neal, Alonzo Mourning, LeBron James, Chris Bosh, Jimmy Butler, and now Giannis is walking into Miami.
But before we get into any of it, one thing has to be said. This isn't a done deal. Giannis can't even sign an extension until January, so he hasn't locked himself into Miami long term yet. And at the same time, LeBron James is sitting in free agency with Miami's name attached to him. So as wild as the summer is already, it isn't over. And everything Miami did only makes sense once you understand that. To see why Miami went this far, you have to go back to the night the old version of this team died. 3 years ago they were in the finals. They hadn't missed the playoffs since 2019. Spoelstra is still one of the best coaches alive, and Heat culture, whether you buy it or roll your eyes at it, is still a real thing inside that building. The problem wasn't that Miami was bad, it was that Miami was stuck. 4 straight years in the play-in, 4 straight years that ended without ever looking like a real threat. And at the 2026 trade deadline, while every other team in the East tried to get better, Miami did nothing. They were the only team in the conference that didn't make a single move. So the whole season came down to one game. The play-in Charlotte. Winning they're in, losing the year's over. And it went wrong immediately. Bam Adebayo, their captain, gets tripped by LaMelo Ball and limps off with a back injury. No whistle on the floor. The league admitted 2 days later it should have been a flagrant 2 and fined Ball $35,000. But by then it didn't matter, because even without Bam, Miami almost pulled it off. Davion Mitchell had 28, Andrew Wiggins had 27, his best game in weeks, and with 12 seconds left they were up 3, and then it all fell apart. Kobe White hit a corner 3 to force overtime, LaMelo scored late, and Miles Bridges erased Miami's last shot at the buzzer, 127 to 126. Done. First missed playoffs since 2019 by a single point. That one game told you everything. Miami lost their captain, fought back anyway, and still couldn't close it out, because when it mattered most, they didn't have the guy who could go get a bucket. The 2 young guys who kept them alive that night were Khalil Ware knocking down the threes, and Pele Larson bringing the fight after Bam went down. Neither one was the answer to that problem, and in a few weeks, one of them would get traded for the player who was. So what actually went wrong? It wasn't the effort, it wasn't Spo, it wasn't the system, it was a star. That's the flaw, and every move Miami made this offseason was about fixing it. Bam is one of the best defenders in the league, but asking him to carry an offense every single night was never his game. And the guys who were supposed to help him carry it couldn't. Tyler Hero kept getting hurt. Norman Powell gave them an all-star year at 33, but you don't build a championship around a 33-year-old who spent most of his career coming off the bench. Nobody on the roster was a real #1 scorer, and it showed. None of this was new. For 6 years, Riley went hunting for the fix. He pushed for Kevin Durant, he circled Donovan Mitchell, he made a run at Damian Lillard, he even called on Giannis at the deadline. Every time a star came available, Miami was right there in the room, and every time they walked away empty. Until now. And by February, everyone in the league already knew what Milwaukee's price was going to be.
Will a team hit the Milwaukee Bucks' price threshold that's been indicated to me as a young blue chip talent and or a surplus of draft picks?
So the offseason had one job: get the star. Everything else came second, and every move Miami made from here gets judged against that one thing. It starts with Giannis, and the case for him is simple. Miami didn't trade for a superstar on the way down. At 31, Giannis just finished the most efficient scoring season of his career, 20.6 a night, on the best true shooting numbers he's ever posted. But the number that actually matters is this one. Last season, Milwaukee was 14 points per 100 possessions better with Giannis on the floor than off of it, the largest swing of his career, and one of the biggest in the entire league. The Bucks only won 32 games because he only played 36. When he was healthy, they were a completely different team. That's what Miami was buying. Not a name, a player who single-handedly turns an average roster into a dangerous one. So what did it cost, you ask? almost everything. Miami sent out 4 rotation players: Tyler Hero, Khalil Ware, Jamie Jaquez, and Kasparis Yakachonis. Then came the picks. This year's number 13, unprotected first rounders in 2031 and 2033, the right to swap firsts in 2030, and a second rounder on top of it. A mountain of draft capital and 2 names that sting the most. That's the same Khalil Ware who was drilling threes trying to save the season in Charlotte. Gone. And Hero, the longest term Heat player on the roster, gone too. Miami wasn't the only team at the table either. Boston was right there, and their offer tells you how high the price really was. The Celtics put Jaylen Brown, a finals MVP, on the table, plus 2 unprotected first round picks. Milwaukee wanted more than that. Boston walked, Miami didn't.
The Celtics offered Jaylen Brown, the 2024 finals MVP, and I'm told 2 unprotected first-round draft picks. The Celtics were not willing to part with enough young players and assets to get a deal done.
That's the whole trade in one sentence. Riley pushed further than any team holding a finals MVP was willing to go. So was it worth it? Go back to the flaw. Miami needed a star. They got one of the 5 best players alive, and the fit is real. Spoelstra gets a downhill freight train next to Bam, 2 switchable defenders on the same front line, on a team that already wanted to run. That's the dream. But there's another side, and Miami can't pretend there isn't. Giannis is 31 heading into year 14, and the injuries have started piling up. And for all the regular season dominance, the playoff version has gone quiet. He hasn't won a playoff series since 2022, which is exactly why not everyone loved this. The Ringer said flat out, this trade changes everything for Miami. It doesn't fix everything. The flaw is gone. Miami finally has its star, and that brought them to the part that actually decides the whole thing, building around him. Landing Giannis was the easy part. What goes around him is the hard part. Because a downhill superstar who can't shoot only works if the floor around him is full of people who can. Start with the guy who came in the same trade, Bobby Portis. Easy to write him off as a throw-in, but that misses it. Portis has spent years next to Giannis. He's a champion, he's one of the better bench bigs in the league, and he plays with exactly the kind of edge Miami has always chased. With Ware gone and Bam coming off a back injury, the Heat had no front court depth. Portis fixes that day 1. He doesn't solve the flaw, he protects the investment. Then the draft. Miami had 1 pick, so it had to count, and they traded up to get Ryan Conwell, a guard out of Louisville.
With the 37th pick in the 2026 NBA Draft, the Oklahoma City Thunder select Ryan Conwell from the University of Louisville.
Forget the college resume. The only thing that matters is why Miami wanted him. Shooting. Conwell put up nearly 10 threes a game in college and shot close to 38% from deep for his career. Nobody's asking him to be a star. They're asking him to space the floor so Giannis has room to work. Early returns have looked real. In his first 3 Summer League games, he scored 3 different ways, including a 26-point night against Golden State. And it wasn't just Conwell. Trevor Keels, a 2-way guard who already owns a G League record for the most threes ever made in a game without a miss, dropped 32 in Las Vegas. Neither of them is going to be a star. That's not the point. The point is Miami suddenly has young guys who can put the ball in the basket, which is exactly what a Giannis team needs around it. He's a second-round rookie, so there will be rough nights for Conwell too. But if Giannis is the engine, guys like Conwell and Keels are exactly the kinds of pieces you bolt around him. Free agency told the same story. Tim Hardaway Jr. didn't come to Miami to be a star. He came to fix the same problem, shooting. He's coming off one of the best 3-point seasons of his career in Denver. He's a hometown kid whose dad's number hangs in the Miami rafters. And he stays healthy, which matters more than it sounds. Because Riley said out loud this season that games played would be a priority. And Hardaway has topped 70 games 4 years running. Then there's the smaller moves, the ones that don't make the headlines. Wiggins locked in on an extension and Fontio came back on a 1-year deal. Nobody's making a highlight video about these two, and that's exactly the point. Once Miami had its star, everything else came down to fit. Shooting, depth, and defense around the guy who needs all 3. So did they build the right roster? Mostly, but not all the way. And that's where the doubts start, because plenty of serious basketball people looked at this and didn't see a contender. They saw a team that just gave up too much. Richard Jefferson won a title in this league, and now he breaks down the game for ESPN. His first reaction wasn't about the fit, it was about the bill.
On the Miami side, I feel like they've given up so much. They did get a lot, but you have to now build an elite team around Giannis, and you've given away a ton of assets.
Then there's Rich Eisen, one of the most familiar voices in the sport. A guy who's anchored national NBA and NFL coverage for almost 30 years, and who has lived this exact take before. Back in 2020, when everyone wanted Miami to trade for Giannis, Eisen said don't do it, don't give up Hero. Giannis stayed, won a title, and Eisen spent years calling it the worst take he's ever had. Then Miami finally made basically that trade, and instead of taking it back, he doubled down.
You gave up too much for him. Hero and Jaquez. who's left to play with. Yeah. Miami acquired him, and they're still going to be a play-in team.
And it's not the only analyst saying it. The morning after the trade, former NBA guard Jeff Teague and his crew on the Club 520 podcast landed on the exact same worry.
Bro, Giannis needs shooters around him, bro.
He needs shooters.
So what's the actual concern? Start with what left. In 3 weeks, Miami lost 5 rotational players: Hero, Ware, Jaquez, Yakuchinitz, and Norman Powell. And Powell hurt the most because he walked to Chicago for 2 years and $45 million, and Miami got nothing back. An all-star scorer out the door, no return. And what's left to fix it? Almost nothing. After the Hardaway deal, Miami has around $10 million to spend, and that's basically the whole budget for any move still to come. So here's what they'll still need, worst to least. Number 1, shooting and shot creation, because Hardaway's 34 and Conwell's a rookie. Number 2, a backup big, because behind Bam and Portis, there's basically nothing, and Bam's coming off a back injury. And number 3, a real league guard, someone to run the offense the nights Giannis sits. And all of this points at the same uncomfortable fact. Giannis is a career 28.5% three-point shooter. That's the worst mark of any active player who's taken 1,000 of them. No star alive needs shooting around him more, and to get him, Miami traded away Hero's shot making, Ware's spacing at the 5, and Powell's scoring. They bought the one player on earth who needs spacing the most, and they paid for him with their spacing, which is exactly why this summer isn't over. Because Miami didn't get the roster and stop. They cleared the deck for one more swing, and the name everyone's waiting on is the biggest in the sport.
And again, being 42 and still playing at this level is insane. When you think about what's admirable, having all these people call, and I said this to LeBron, I said,
LeBron James. For the first time in years, LeBron is a free agent. He told the Lakers he's not coming back, and Miami is right in the middle of it. His own agent, Rich Paul, named the Heat as one of the teams in play. So how real is the Miami version of this? Real, but it's not the front runner. Shams laid out the Heat pool, Riley Spoelstra playing next to Bam and Giannis, and no state income tax in Florida. And Brian Windhorst, ESPN's lead LeBron porter for 2 decades, framed the whole thing as a 2-team race, saying Cleveland or Miami is the clean makes sense decision, and anywhere else would be harder for LeBron to explain. The problem for Heat fans is which of those two it's leaning toward. Windhorst had said the vibes point to a Cleveland homecoming, and other insiders now call the Cavs the clear frontrunner, with Miami running second. But Windhorst had a warning too. Nobody actually knows what LeBron is going to do. This is the guy who back in 2010 gave Wade and Bosch about a 12-hour heads up before the decision. He keeps the circle tiny, so anyone telling you it's done is guessing. There's a cost to wait too. LeBron loses nothing by taking his time. Miami loses plenty because they already spent the roster to get Giannis, while a team like Cleveland can sit back with money and spots still open. Because if LeBron says no, there's a backup plan. Bradley Beal is on the market, and Miami's had early conversations. Nothing serious yet. DeMar DeRozan's name has floated too. None of those move the needle like LeBron, but they answer the same question. Who creates offense when the stars sit? You can already see it happening. While Miami holds a spot open for LeBron, the other names keep signing somewhere else. Chris Middleton, a shooter Miami had interest in and a longtime Giannis teammate, agreed to a deal with Washington and came off the board. Every week LeBron takes, another fallback option disappears. That's the risk of building your summer around a decision that isn't yours to make. Here's what actually matters. Miami built this roster with a hole at guard on purpose. Whether that hole gets filled by the best player of this generation or a fallback option is the whole difference between a real contender and another play-in team. And right now, nobody knows which one it's going to be. Underneath all of it sits the scariest question of all. What if Giannis leaves? Because here's the fine print on one of the biggest trades in team history. Giannis can't even sign his extension until January 6th. That's the 4-year, $275 million supermax. And if he doesn't sign it, he's holding a $62.8 million player option he can turn down to become a free agent in 2027. Read that again. Miami emptied the vault, and the player they emptied it for, worst case, can be gone after one season. Bleacher Report said it plainly. If he walks next summer, this move risks being a disaster, because the cupboard would be bare. Nobody gives up this much without private signals he's staying. Everyone knows that. But signals aren't signatures. And until January, this entire franchise is holding its breath. So where does this actually leave Miami? Here's the truth, both halves of it. Giannis hasn't played a single game in a Heat jersey. There's no extension signed. The shooting problem is arguably worse than it was in April. And the LeBron question is still hanging over the whole league. This story is nowhere near finished. But if you want the optimistic read, Richard Jefferson already gave it. He pointed out that LeBron won his first title in Miami in year 2, one in Cleveland in year 2, one in LA in year 2. Stars land, year 1 is the setup, year 2 is the swing.
LeBron James won a championship his second year in Miami, his second year in Cleveland, his second year in LA. Not this season, the following season and the season after.
So don't judge this by next June. Judge it by the June after. Here's what's already true. The flaw is gone. Miami spent 6 years losing star sweepstakes, and this time they finally won one. They have one of the best players alive. What they don't have yet is everything around him, and whether Riley finishes a job with LeBron or without him is what decides if this is the smartest all-in in franchise history or the most expensive mistake. So tell me where you land. Is this the smartest all-in Pat Riley has ever made? Or did he just mortgage the next decade for a guy who could walk in a year? Drop in the comments. If you're rocking with the channel, hit the like and subscribe button, and check out more videos like this one on your screen right now.